Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cozy Corner. My name is Leigh and this is my library. So grab a mug of something yummy and settle in for some talk of books. Today we are going to be talking about my January TBR. Oh, we're finally here. We're starting another year of reading goals. I'm a little nervous, but this month I'm really excited because we've got some good books lined up. Now, January is actually going to be a pretty light reading month for me because if we've learned anything from 2020, it's to take things slow and to not plan too far ahead. Whether it's a job, a hobby, a side hustle, getting your life, let alone your schedule, sorted out takes time. So we're gonna go slow and start off 2021 with an easy read month. My TBR, like I said, is going to be pretty small and primarily dedicated to one particular author, which I am so jazzed about. John Flanagan and his Ranger's Apprentice universe. His universe consists of 3 series, as well as a few prequels. I have read parts of each series. I have yet to read the prequels, so most of the stuff that I'm reading this month are continuations or additions to those series, as well as the 2 prequels that I mentioned. So, without further ado, let me give you the rundown. I should make it clear that I have read the entirety of the Ranger's Apprentice series, which is the first and primary series of this universe. I only own 4 of them, the first 4 out of the 12 I believe there are. So every time I get one for Christmas or a birthday or whatever, I always read it because this is a series that I love so much and I have no problems reading again. I could read it forever. So I currently own books 1, 2, and 4. Somehow we skipped 3. Don't know how that happened, but for Christmas I happened to get it. The first 3 books of The Ranger's Apprentice follow the story of Will and Evangeline, and they really function as a trilogy. Not necessarily that each book is its own individual story that are tied together. It's like one big story that's cut into 3 parts. And so it follows the story of Will and Evangeline as they are part of this battle and eventually get kidnapped and taken to Scandia, which is the icebound land in question, and are held as slaves until Halt, who is Will's sort of advisor mentor, comes to rescue them. Let me give you sort of the more elaborate rundown of the Ranger's Apprentice series if you've never read them before. Like I said, it follows the story of Will, who is the main character. He is the Ranger's apprentice. And Will is an orphan. We find him, I think is it 15? I think when they're 15, if I'm remembering correctly, they are all orphans in the castle where they live are supposed to choose a career path. And most of the people or the kids, orphans who live there are pretty well acquainted with what they're going to do as their career path, whether it's battle school, whether it's being a courier, a chef, horse maintenance, whatever, horse maintenance. Oh man. Anyway, but Will doesn't know what he wants to do. He really wants to go to battle school because he has grown up believing that his father was this great knight who was a hero in battle, and so he wants to be part of battle school, but he just isn't capable. He's pretty skinny, he doesn't have a whole lot of strength, just not the right fit for battle school or what they're looking for. And so they're at this meeting to decide who's going to do what for a career path, and this mysterious stranger shows up whose name is Halt. And Halt is part of the private police force of the king called the Rangers, who are particularly good at camouflage and spying and just being, you know, effective convincers that, you know, following the law is the best course of action. Halt is very much a grizzled, mysterious man, and Will is a little terrified, but eventually discovers that being a ranger is actually what Will is supposed to do. It's his calling. He finds out that he's actually very adept at a lot of the things the Rangers are looking for. And from that point, he becomes Halt's apprentice, and the rest of the series continues. So that's the gist of the series. Lots of great characters, lots of fascinating enemies. There's some romance in there. It's really good. So I'm really excited to read another installment of this. It's such beautiful storytelling, and I love the creation of this series, why it was created. John Flanagan's son wasn't very interested in reading or struggled with reading, and so John decided to write him a story for him so he would be inspired and want to read, and that's how this series was born. And I think that's such a beautiful way to start a series, and it's such a well-explained universe. It's gorgeous storytelling, like I said. As I also mentioned, after the first 3, they become much more episodic. I believe the 4th book actually takes place several years later, after Will has actually already become an actual ranger and he's no longer an apprentice. And the rest of them are very episodic. A few of them are like duology, or they're similar events tied together, but most of them are pretty set apart stories, but they're all beautiful, and there's 12 of them, so you can get immersed in this series for a long time. Anyway, I'm really excited to read The Icebound Land, which is the final episode of the original trilogy. Next, we have the prequels, the 2 stories that come before the beginning of the Ranger's Apprentice series. Both of the dust jackets of these are missing. This happens a lot with me. I'll take them off to preserve them, and somehow I lose them. I don't know where they go. I should keep better track of them. It is what it is. Anyway, so the first 2, this duology is called The Early Years. I don't actually know if there are more than the 2 of them. As far as I know, there's only the 2, but they're pretty sizable in themselves. One of them is called The Battle of Hackham Heath, and the other is called The Tournament at Gorlin. I believe, from what I have read of like the synopsis of this book, the Battle of Hackham Heath is the battle that Will's father died in, if I'm remembering correctly. And then The Tournament at Gorlin, I believe, is a story of Halt's origin. So I don't know too much about these prequels. I've purposefully, kept a lot of the information a secret because I know so much about the universe that I didn't want any of like the reasoning behind that plotline to be spoiled. I wanted to be completely surprised by the origin stories of some of my favorite characters. So I'm excited to read these. These will probably be 2nd and 3rd in my TBR, just because I want to start with these and then explore the rest of the series. So be impacted by all the stuff that's in here. I'm really excited. I love a good origin story. I really hope that I'm pleasantly surprised. Like, there's a bunch of stuff in here that I'm like, ooh, that's a fun tidbit. Yeah, I'm really fascinated. In universes that I love, I just love a good prequel because it just colors your experience of the universe so much more. I think it's a beautiful addition if they're well written. And if I know John Flanagan, these were going to be exquisite. Next, we have the direct spin-off of The Ranger's Apprentice, but I believe the 3rd series John Flanagan started, called The Royal Ranger. So once Will is a fully fledged adult and has been a ranger for many years, he decides, or is quote-unquote commissioned to take on the princess as a ranger. And she is the first female ranger. Her name is Maddie, and she is the daughter of Horace, who is Will's best friend, and Cassandra, who is actually Evanlyn, his friend in the first trilogy. That's not really a spoiler. It's pretty obvious within the first trilogy, so I'm not spoiling a whole lot for you. But she is the princess, and Will takes her on, and she becomes, like I said, the first female ranger. We love breaking that glass ceiling. So this series is called The Royal Ranger because she is royal. This one's called A New Beginning. I have read this before. I did check it out from the library when it came out. That was many years ago, but I have my own copy now, as well as the second, The Red Fox Clan. This one, like I said, I have read before. It's so good because you get to see Will really be the father figure that Halt was to him, to Maddie. Not Maddie has a father, but she's a princess and there's a lot of rules and regulations about her growing up, and it's really beautiful to see Will sort of come full circle of being an orphan to now having a charge in his care. Unfortunately, I did read this one in a very busy time in my life, so I don't really remember a whole lot of the constructs of the enemy that's in here, but it's just, instead of boy teenager, it's girl teenager, and it's just a lot of hormones. And Will struggling with his niece and goddaughter, and relating to her and training her to be the composed individual that a ranger should be. I remember very vividly that I think Maddie gets drunk in here. And Will has to deal with her. It's just really beautiful. I love the dynamic between Will and Maddie. That I think is the most striking part of this story to me. The second book I actually know a little bit more about. This one doesn't have a bio on the back, and I didn't do a whole lot of research, but this one has, obviously, inside the cover, and a really beautiful depiction of all the books he has written. The Red Fox Clan has to do with a group of anarchists called the Red Fox Clan who are threatening the kingdom of Araluen, primarily Princess Cassandra's, Queen Cassandra at the time, and her daughter Maddie or Madeline's succession to the throne. They're challenging it, and the treachery that comes from that, and Maddie's defeat of the Red Fox Clan. I'm really excited about this one because this one sounds a little bit more akin to what I would expect from the Ranger's Apprentice. This is more about relationship development, but I think this one is finally getting to the meat of the adventure fantasy that Ranger's Apprentice is. So I'm really excited to start this. I know there are 2 more in the Royal Ranger series. I have no doubt that I will not get to them this year. And then by the time I put them on my gift list next year, there's going to be 2 more. So it is what it is. It's the risk you run when you're in love with a lot of multiple series that take up a lot of time. But I'm really excited to get these read and to dive into a new part of the universe. And last but not least, the most hefty series that I have to catch up on is the second series that John Flanagan wrote in this universe called The Brother Band Chronicles. Oh, there are, I want to say, 10 of them now. 9 or 10, I can't remember exactly how many there are. I have 5 to read. I have read the first 3. Technically, I've actually read the first 4, but like I said, I started reading those in a very busy time of my life, and when I don't remember much about the first book, I will usually reread it in order to refresh my memory before I start anything new. So I'm backtracking a little bit and starting with book number 4, which is Slaves of Socorro. Brother Band Chronicles is a series that follows Hal, who is the main character. And this series takes place in Scandia, which is, like I mentioned, in the Icebound Land, another country in this universe that it's pretty prevalent in Ranger's Apprentice. A lot of really great, amazing characters come from that country in that series, and one of them, Eric, who is the Oberjarl, or like the quote-unquote king of the Scandians, is a big character in the Brother Band series. Anyway, it follows the main character, Hal, who is kind of, in the nicest way possible, the runt of the litter. Teenage boys in Scandia are put through brother band training. A brother band is basically a ship's crew. They're very prevalent sailors. Basically, they were raiders for a long time, and in the Ranger's Apprentice, the Araluans, who Will is an Araluan, they had a lot of conflict with the Scandians because they would raid towns, and it was a whole big thing. But they stopped most of that now, but there's still the brother band training of the solidarity and the companionship and comradeship that can come from, or camaraderie that can come from a brother band. And so you go through brother band training. Through a series of events, Hal finds himself becoming the leader of a brother band, and all of the members of his brother band are misfits, and so his challenge is to try to create them into this group of functioning crewmates, and it does work. The first 3, it's an exceptional story. I won't tell you too much about it just because those are very episodic. The first 3, I think, like Ranger's Apprentice, function together as a trilogy, one long story cut into 3 parts. This is really the first step into the rest of the world. In the original trilogy, there is a villain whose name is Tersgood, who basically is Hal's like #1 tormentor. And in book number 4, Slaves of Socorro, we find out that Tersgood, once Hal and his brother band have returned from their adventure of the original trilogy, has become a slaver. Basically, Tersgood got the short end of the stick and turned into an outright villain and became a slaving ship. And so Hal and his brother band go on a journey to capture Tersgood and to rescue the Araluan slaves that he took, accompanied by, I think, probably my favorite ranger. And if this ever is made into a movie, he would be the one that I would be automatically in love with. Anyway, they're joined by a ranger from the Ranger's Apprentice series named Gillen, who joins them on their journey, and it's just so good. I do remember really enjoying this book, but I'm excited to reread it. Book number 5 is called Scorpion Mountain. This directly follows book 4. Gillen, the ranger, is called back to Araluen because there was an assassination attempt on Princess Cassandra's life, who is Maddie's mom in the Royal Ranger. I don't think she's a mom yet, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't remember the exact timeline of how these series interweave. Basically, Gillen decides to take the brother band with him to go and track down the Scorpion cult, who is the cult charged with the assassination attempt, and now there has been a second attempt on her life, and so Gillen and the brother band go and try to eradicate this cult who is threatening to kill the princess. Book number 6 is The Ghost Faces. This follows the story of the brother band, Hal's brother band crew, who are almost capsized during a storm and wash up on this unknown land. And they discover that there's really no locals. Like, it's not a bustling island. The locals are very mysteriously secluded, but they become peaceful friends with the Mawagansett tribe, I think is how you pronounce it. Yep. Who are there, but they find out that there is this other really haunting tribe who shaves their heads and paints their faces white, called the Ghost Faces, who are planning to raid and invade their friends, the Mawagansets. And so the Herons, which is the name of Hal's brother band, his ship is called the Heron, are prepared to defend their friends and their tribe against this invasion. Book number 7 is called The Caldera. This book, like I said, is a separate story. Much like The Ghost Faces, it isn't connected to any other book, but it takes place back in Halisholm, which is the capital of Scandia, and Hal's first mate, Stig, is entering the Machtig competition, which is the competition for the greatest warrior of Scandia. But in the middle of this competition, someone shows up at Stig's door who is an old familiar face, who asks him and Hal for help in recovering the kidnapped son of Empress Justina. I'm particularly excited about this because this is a part of the universe that we have never traveled to before. A city-state called Byzantos, which is located in a volcano, or on a volcano. And so the Herons go and try to rescue Empress Justina's son, as well as the conspiracies and the crimes that are committed there. This one sounds really, really, really interesting. And literally it says, in this explosive 7th book, and I'm like, ooh, I hope the volcano erupts. What a lovely bit of chaos for that book. And then the 8th book, the one I did get for Christmas this year, is called The Return of the Temujai. The Temujai is, again, this is such a callback because in the 3rd book, The Icebound Land, the Temujai are a huge part of the first turning point of the Araluans and the Scandians becoming friends rather than enemies. It's a common enemy. They unite everybody. The Temujai are people who live in the eastern steppes, which is a land that borders Scandia. And basically the Temujai are very bitter about the fact that they've never been able to conquer Scandia for their own. This is a common thing that happens in the Ranger's Apprentice. And finally they've amassed enough forces to try and do that. So Hal and his crew have to sail through the river to try to stop the invasion from the Temujai and protect their homeland. This one is really interesting because really a lot of these books are seafaring, so we don't spend a whole lot of time in Scandia in this series, and I'm really excited to see one on their own turf. So those are the Brother Band books that I have to catch up on, 5 of them. So in total, that is 10 books for January, for my January TBR. It's a lot, but it is what it is. I'm really excited to continue diving into this universe and to catch up with everything that's been happening. Like I said, John Flanagan is such an amazing writer that I have never been disappointed by any of his books. They're so solid, such good universe building that I can't wait to see what's next. Now, if I'm more proactive than I'm anticipating, I will maybe add a few more titles to this TBR because even though this seems like a lot, I fly through these because they just suck me in and I go, go, go when I read these. So maybe, but you know, it's all about setting attainable goals. When you set attainable goals, they're easier to accomplish and you will eventually accomplish more in the long run. So that's the plan at the moment. So let me know what's in your January TBR. Have you read John Flanagan at all? Did you dislike it? What's your favorite series? In that series, what's your favorite book? I would love to nerd out about this with someone because I just love it so much. Please go ahead and give this video a like and subscribe to Leigh's Library. It really does help me out and let me know what you guys want to see. As always, a huge thank you to the friends and family who have readily supported me along this journey. It truly means the world, and I can't wait to see what's on the next page. Cheers.